Third down and 20.
All right, let's go to backup QBs. So, kind of like I was saying earlier, we had a couple of seasons ago, Ryan Tannehill. You could have picked him up for pennies. I did one of my startups. It wasn't necessarily my call, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but it did happen, and it could happen in the future. You never know. Backup quarterbacks in Superflex are always a little sneaky, right? Maybe you like to handcuff your starting quarterbacks just in case they get injured, or maybe you want to take a shot if you don't have good quarterbacks on a guy that could potentially see playing time. So let's talk about it.
Okay.
Who are your favorite backup quarterbacks? And I'm going first. My boy, Taylor Heinicke.
Yeah.
I love me some Taylor Heinicke. Listen, I understand you guys are going to meme at me. You're going to say I'm an idiot. But Taylor Heinicke, I am trying to pick up in a lot of my leagues for nothing.
I'm not hating.
You know, in our rebuild league, we just picked him up on waivers for 5 fab. Yeah, am I expecting Taylor Heinicke to become the starting quarterback? No, we're not expecting any backup quarterback to become a starting quarterback, right? All of them have usually really good high-end draft capital. But in terms of dart throw guys, I think that Taylor Heinicke is one of the very few backup quarterbacks that legitimately has starter potential. The other one I think I would look at is Marcus Mariota, as crazy as it sounds. And I know I might have just stole that from someone on the list, but Marcus Mariota has, to me, is better than a backup quarterback, but worse than a starting quarterback. But you put him in a good enough scenario, I think that Marcus Mariota, and once again, in terms of backup quarterbacks that you're picking up on waivers or for like basically nothing nonsense draft capital, could eventually be in a spot where it makes sense for him. What if the Giants traded for him, right? I think he'd have a shot at beating out Daniel Jones, honestly. If Daniel Jones, dude, you're looking at me sideways, but if Daniel Jones comes out this season and plays like cheeks, right, and you're 5 weeks into the season, right before the trade deadline, and you're Dave Gettleman, what if you could pick up Marcus Mariota for like a 5th-round pick, a 4th-round pick? And then all of a sudden, Marcus Mariota gets launched into a starting role again on a good team. It could happen. And you're picking up Marcus Mariota for like nothing right now.
See, I think Mariota is going to be the type where next offseason he's going to be a bridge QB somewhere. I know there was interest in him last offseason, and the Raiders decided to keep him. They had the choice to let him walk, but they wanted to keep him. And he's someone I like too. I just wrote his name down in the doc. I agree with you on Mariota, I think, and Heinicke. I think those are probably the 2 most valuable backups. I don't see someone in season because it's kind of hard to trade for a QB in season and then him just become your starter right then. If you're trying for a playoff push like the Giants are, I think the Giants are just going to ride it out with Daniel Jones. But this is going to be the year that decides if he's their guy. He has to perform this year. I'm sure Jake agrees with that as well. But I agree with you on those 2, especially Heinicke. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick, like he's obviously not the long-term option. And I think the Ravens roster is too good to the point where like they're not going to have an early pick. So Heinicke might have a shot.
The football team, you mean?
Oh my God, I'm so bad with that. I'm sorry. The Washington
It's
football.
been over a year, Lounis.
Doug,
what are you doing?
Doug, I was saying, I don't know. I got caught slacking. Please don't cancel me. But so I like Heinicke a lot. He'd probably be number 1 for me in my backup QB rankings of most value. The one I had written down, he's technically not a backup right now. He's going to open the season starter, but the writing is kind of on the wall for him. Jimmy G. He is falling in value everywhere, obviously, because of the Trey Lance pick. And I think he still holds some value. Obviously, it drops a significant amount. It drops a decent amount, but I could see him starting somewhere next year. Like Frank brought up earlier, Pittsburgh. I think there's going to be some teams looking for a bridge QB or just a guy who can start for 1 year. And I think he can start, like when he played, the problem was him was just staying healthy, because when he was healthy, he won games consistently in San Francisco. And even when his little stretch in New England, like his career record as a starter is really impressive. So I think he still holds value. Like I remember the start draft I was just in, I drafted him in a really late round. because everyone's obviously assuming Trey Lance is going to be the guy sooner or later this season. But I think Jimmy G can start somewhere, maybe not this year, but next season. And I still think he's talented enough to be a starter in this league if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know Jimmy G has shown he could take a team to the Super Bowl. I don't think he's the reason they went to the Super Bowl, but he's capable to get a team there. Some guys that I like as backups, I think one is Gardner Minshew. I don't know how much he'll be on the waiver wire just because, he was a starter last year, so some people might still have him from last year.
Yeah, he'll probably be rostered, but you could definitely pick him up for like a late third if you wanted to.
Yeah, maybe even
or
less.
Even an early fourth.
Yeah, so like he's a guy that you can get for almost nothing. He's a guy that I think everyone saw that he had ability to play in the NFL. He won not a lot of games last year, but he was injured a lot. But the year before as a rookie, he looked pretty decent. Obviously, not a lot of talent around him, not a lot to work with. I think he's a guy, if you put him in an offense that has a few pieces around him and you don't ask him to do too much, would be a very nice, bridge quarterback for somebody if they needed it, something along those lines. And at that point, I've started quarterbacks, starting quarterback in fantasy. So to pay a fourth for a guy that might end up starting, I think it's a good shot in dark. If you don't like anyone on the board late in the draft, just throw it out there. Another guy that I have is a former starter, now the backup in Miami. It's Jacoby Brissett. He's a guy that was the starter 2 years ago for a almost playoff Colts team. So obviously Wentz is there. Phillip Rivers was there last year. He kind of got pushed aside, and I understand it. You're not really going too far with Jacoby Brissett, but he's another guy that I think
he wasn't terrible when he started.
No, he wasn't bad when he started. He had a full season as a starter, and I think he played pretty well. I think the team finished like 6-10, didn't they? Something like that. Which is a
good shout, dude. I think that's a really good shout.
So like
I forgot about him.
He obviously he's in Miami. They have Tua. I think I'm a big Tua believer. I think even if it's not there, it's only a 1-year deal in Miami. He has a chance to be a bridge quarterback somewhere else next year, and to pick him up for literally nothing. He's going to be on the waiver wire in pretty much all leagues except really deep rosters. So Jacoby Brissett, guy I would just keep an eye on.
Yeah, Brissett, the last time he started, obviously nothing special, but around 3,000 passing yards, 22 touchdowns to 6 picks. That's not bad. And that's including 4 rushing touchdowns. So 18 passing, 4 rushing to 6 interceptions.
Well, here's the other thing too, is that not only because we saw obviously Tua had his struggles last year, but I think if you're going to rank all of the starting quarterbacks of guys that potentially could get hurt, now I know injuries are a little wonky, but they do happen a whole lot. Tua's probably near the top of the list in starting quarterbacks that if he's going to get hit, I know it's a stretch. It's definitely a stretch what I'm saying here, but the combination of guys that could get hurt plus talent in terms of a backup quarterback, I think that definitely kind of checks both of the boxes. Not necessarily that Brissett will ever be a starting quarterback again, but in terms of a guy that if you have a roster spot, you can just put him on there, and when he starts, he's not just going to be completely dog shit. I think that's a good one. Are there any other backups that you guys like?
This is another one, and it's more in terms of the fact of QBs that we've seen get hurt. And it's, I hope I pronounce his name right, Wolford on the Rams. We saw him a little.
Stafford's a goddamn iron, man. That man plays with a broken back. That man's a beast.
He'll play through injuries, but I mean, those injuries happen a lot, and to the point where he just physically can't. I agree. Matt Stafford is one of the toughest quarterbacks in the NFL. There's a difference in being tough and non-injury prone. Because it's all love in the world to Matthew Stafford. I fucking love Matthew Stafford. But I think the Rams liked what they had in Wolford. I don't know if you remember that wild card game against the Seahawks, right?
Yeah,
where Jared Goff had to coming off that injury. Jared Goff was able to throw not terribly that game, and McVay still wanted to start Wolford originally. He just was forced to go to Goff after Wolford got injured.
I mean, dude was playing with a broken thumb. Do I blame him? No.
I'm just saying when Goff came in, didn't look like too bad. I don't
I
know.
think my big problem with Wolford is that he really, really lacks in the arm talent department. I think that's the other big thing against someone like Heineke, even though I really like him. It's just he doesn't have NFL level arm talent, really, which is kind of the problem. At least from what I've seen, he hasn't really proved it to me. JT's in the chat saying Blaine Gabbert, and I actually think that's not a bad shout at all. I know we saw Kyle Trask getting some love in the rookie camp reports, but Tom Brady did have major knee surgery, and Blaine Gabbert, he has the draft pedigree. Obviously, his career has not panned out, but in terms of if you're a win now team, who would you rather start? Blaine Gabbert, seasoned veteran, in a complicated Bruce Arians offense, might I add, or rookie, very raw Kyle Trask. I think that if Brady goes down, there's a good chance that we would see Gabbert go in first over Trask. So he's someone that should be in waivers because right now he's considered like a third tier guy. I don't think that's a bad shout at all from JT.
One other that I would throw out there is Mason Rudolph. Just with you're the Steelers.
He did improve, like, because I remember he got benched for Hodges or he got hurt. One of the two, I forget. And
I think he got whacked in the head, if I remember correctly.
No, when he came back and that Week 17 game, like, he looked a lot better, and he was way more comfortable. He was confident. He improved on a couple of the issues I had from him coming out. So it's not a terrible shot, I don't think.
I think another thing with that is, like we talked about earlier in the pod, like the uncertainty at quarterback for the Steelers. I mean, they're going to be a good team this year. They're going to be in the playoffs, if not right there for the playoffs. I mean, I think there's almost, I don't want to say no way, but I think there's a really, really good chance they make the playoffs. And they're not going to be in position to really take Ben's successor, even if Ben ends up I think this is it for Ben. From a Steelers perspective, you follow the team more than I do. Is Ben really going to be there past this year?
Probably not. I thought he wasn't going to be there 2 years ago. So
right. So to have the guy that's right now the backup to him, and he's going to be now his third season or fourth season. So like he's right in that area where it's like, okay, like you've learned under Ben long enough. Like it's your time to take the reins. We don't have a pick here to really replace you. I mean, I think you can get him for pretty much nothing. If he's on a roster, it won't take much.
I don't know. I think that Mason's kind of a bait, though. Whether Ben comes back or Ben is gone, I don't think that the Steelers are going to have him as the guy. I guess the last one I kind of want to talk about, he's not really a backup, kind of more in that Jimmy G scenario, is Drew Lock. I'm not really a huge Drew Lock guy, but I do think that hate has gone a little bit too far for Drew Lock. The guy has arm talent, and the guy has had some good games. He just hasn't really been able to put it all together, the total package.
Have you seen him dance on the sidelines?
Like, I don't necessarily think that he will be the guy in Denver. But in terms of someone that, if we're going to talk about the Ryan Tannehill, who maybe goes to a really talented offense where he just kind of has to make easy throws and easy decisions, and you have like a Derrick Henry at running back, let's say, and you're doing a lot of play action. Well, of all these backup quarterbacks that we listed, I think Drew Lock could actually be that dude.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I've always been a Drew Lock fan. I think he has all the arm talent in the world, and it's just really getting that, the head on his shoulders straight away and like really teaching him how to play this game rather than just like winging the ball down the field and just beating people with your arm. I think that's a really good shout, man.
I'm going to sound like a hater this pod I'm good off Drew Lock.
But his price, though, for his price, the price for upside. What is the price for Drew Lock? Jake, you own Drew Lock. What? Okay, let's just say you thought that, not that you thought he sucked, but like, I guess you wanted to sell him for his current market price. What is Drew Lock's current fair market price?
I mean, probably a back end second, maybe a early third. I don't think I would take anything less. But like,
so maybe I thought his price was a little bit lower then.
I was gonna say his price is probably early third.
his price is probably an early third. I'll pull it up on Keep Trade Cut.
Yeah, but I'm not taking Drew Lock over Mond, I don't think. And Mond is at an early third right now, or maybe even a Davis Mills.
Mond's probably late second. Davis Mills is probably around the range where Lock is. If not, Lock might be slightly higher.
Okay, I guess I thought that Drew Lock's price was a little bit lower then. So
Drew Lock's price pretty much lines up with about 301. So
yeah.
Well, what happens now? Here's the thing with Drew Lock, right? What if Teddy Bridgewater comes in day one as the starter? Like his price probably goes down. Like what does it go? Because that's I guess when I would want to buy Drew Lock if I was going to buy. I'm not paying an early third for Drew Lock. Fuck that. I think if I could pick him up for like a fourth at some point or like a late third, that's when I would pull the trigger.
That's fair. I mean, like the thing with Drew Lock is it's like really hard to to really sell a quarterback that's been a starter for the past 2 years for a 4th round pick. Like,
you're not doing it. You're not doing
obviously,
it. Right now.
You're not selling the 4th round pick until he's completely benched for Teddy Bridgewater.
Even then, like I have a guy like Trubisky, and I think that's another guy we should put on this backup quarterback list. Is Mitch Trubisky, by the way.
Maserati Mitch.
Yeah, Maserati Mitch. We all know how I like my Maserati. I mean, Mitch had a few good games. Like we've seen Mitch put up 40-point fantasy performances. Like we've seen him do everything you want in a quarterback. He's just never been able to be consistent. And honestly, he's looked like shit the past year and a half, pretty much. So but now the thing with Mitch is he's just been such a wild card. You never know what he's gonna do.
What is his price right now, you think?
It's 4th.
See, that's I want Drew Lock to get into that territory, in the Mitch Trubisky territory.
So it's pretty much once he becomes a full-time backup. There was another one I just completely forgot of, and this has way more to do with this situation than him, so maybe it's not as valid. Jacob Eason.
Nah, fuck Jacob Eason.
Listen, again, it's not because of talent. I'm just going to tell you. First off, who do you think wins that backup job? Jacob Eason or Sam Ehlinger? Is it Ehlinger or Ehlinger? I'm not sure.
I think that Ehlinger is not more talent. I think that Ehlinger is better. Eason has more talent. The guy can throw the ball a mile.
Eason's the more physical talent, but in terms of what you want as a backup quarterback, the guy that's going to come in and not lose you the game, and that's Ehlinger because he's a smart quarterback. So
whoever ends up being the Colts QB2, I mean for two reasons. One, we all know Carson Wentz's injury history. At any given moment, obviously he's behind a way better O-line now. So I think he'll be healthy for the most part, but I mean, obviously it's still Wentz. I think the second thing, which is kind of the more important part, is you got to remember if the Carson Wentz experiment is not working out, they're not going to just let him play 75% of those season snaps and give up a first instead of a second. If like
that's what I say. I think if they're out of the playoff race, they're just going to bench him so they keep the first. No doubt. It's a real interesting thought. And I brought that up when this trade originally happened. So, I think he's going to have a short leash.
So whoever is that backup QB could get some starts those last couple weeks of the season.
That's interesting.
That's why I say it's not so much the talent, it's more the situation.
What about Glennon?
Glennon.
He looked all right some games last year for the Wars.
He's the definition of a backup quarterback. He's whatever, but it's what it is. I like Colt McCoy as a true backup that the Giants had last year. I was kind of upset he went to Arizona, but it's fine. Backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, but Colt McCoy wasn't bad.
I think that's going to do it here for the backup quarterbacks. I'm looking at the list. I still like Case Keenum, but once again, it's kind of like the whole arm talent thing. Like he just doesn't have an NFL starter arm.
He's a good backup quarterback. I don't think he's a guy that like you really go out and get just because he's not going to do much.
I'd have him on my roster if I was a Baker Mayfield owner. If I'm not, I don't really have interest.
I mean, right now the Saints quarterbacks, it's like they're like in a true competition. It's almost more like the Broncos scenario where both of them there's not really a true backup yet. And there might not really be one for the beginning of the season. Like even when someone's named the starter. They're going to have a short leash, whoever it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, if
Ian
Taysom Hill's
Book.
the starter, obviously Jameis is on that list. But
Ian Book, 100%.
Ian Book,
Wet like I'm Book.
Notre Dame legend.
Joe Flacco on the Eagles. Any love for elite level Joe Flacco?
He's the
Not
best
really.
receiver on the team.
Garrett
Best receiver.
Gilbert
He
maybe
might
on the
be.
Cowboys when he almost went in and beat the Steelers.
I forgot about that game.
Give
That
me
was such a weird
DiNucci.
game. Ben DiNucci. They just brought in Brett Hundley for a workout today. So I don't know if they're super confident in their backup QB situation.